I was hoping at the beginning of this year that we weren't going to have a ton of this, and then Soul Assembly announced last week, and now we have fast travel games. I think burying your head in the sand and saying, oh, everything's great, everything's wonderful, I think is a little bit naive. So I will continue to report on these, even though there are a lot of people who say they don't want to hear this. Feel free to not watch the video. Message from us as Fast Travel Games. Due to lower sales than expected from our 6 game launches in 2024, in combination with a more uncertain year ahead for VR games as a whole, we've taken the difficult decision to make 30 employees redundant at FTG. These changes will affect mainly our publishing, marketing, and admin departments, although the studio will also be impacted as we consolidate down to one development team. This is an exceptionally difficult decision, but we believe it is necessary to ensure a stable and sustainable future for the company. Our focus now is on supporting all fast travelers through this challenging time. We're grateful for the invaluable contributions of those leaving and remain committed to continuing to launching incredible games for our players. Gonna read the money line here again. Due to lower sales than expected from our 6 game launches in 2024, in combination with the more uncertain year ahead for VR games as a whole. I'm just gonna stop there. Okay, they published Project Demigod, Black Forge, Band Space was one I couldn't remember. They were also the publisher for Into the Radius on the PSVR 2, and then they actually released Mannequin, which was, I called the VR freeze tag, but it's a 2v3 multiplayer head-to-head game, and a game recently called Action Hero. That's a lot of releases in a year, and the publishing deals are really what stood out to me. If you don't know how a publishing deal works, the way most of those work, and they kind of get structured in a couple of different ways, but primarily it's one of two. One, the publisher fronts up development costs to the developer to basically finish the game, with the expectation that when the game actually gets published and when it ships, that the publisher will take a certain percentage of the revenue. So already like Meta, Steam, PlayStation, and out of VR, you're talking like Nintendo or Microsoft, take 30% just for listing their game on their store. That's a storefront fee. Every storefront does this. Even that Epic does it too. And then the publisher will say, okay, after they get their 30%, we want 40%. Or they'll say, okay, we either take 40% straight up and then you get the other, what's that math, 30%. Or we will take 100% of revenue plus interest, basically. So let's say 20% interest until we recoup our investment. So if I gave you $500,000 to finish, let's say I'm a publisher and I'm giving Croy, who's a developer, this publishing deal. Hey Croy, I'm gonna give you $500,000 to pay you and your team to finish your game and get it to the store. But in return, when your game comes out, you're going to owe me back $700,000 or $600,000. So like basically my investment plus 20%. And until your game pays me back $600,000, you will not get a dime of revenue. And if you're Croy, if you're Team Croy, then you say, you know what, our game's going to be a massive hit. That is a drop in the bucket. We'll absolutely take that deal. And you're taking a short-term loss because you're not going to get any revenue out of it until you pay me back, and then everything else is yours. It's either that or they take a flat percentage off the top. So no matter how many copies of the game sold, if the game sold 1 million copies, then I'm going to get 40% of that. And those deals can be structured differently, and it all depends on how much assistance the developer needs. Do they need marketing support as well? Do they need support to get through the QA process? All those deals are different, but generally that's how those work. So if Fast Travel, which is published now, again, 4 games on platforms in 2024, let's say 2 of those games or 3 of those games are flops, then they're not recouping any of that investment, so they're just taking that as a loss. If you gave a developer, let's just say, let's use Band Space as an example. If you gave that developer $500,000 plus marketing support and assistance with QA, so you're devoting resources to that as well to get the game through QA and onto the store, and then it completely flops, you basically lost that investment. No, so if you have 4 publishing deals in a year, and let's say 2 of them did not go well, then that's a lot of money that you just wrote down, or a lot of money that you're not going to recoup if you have the second version of that contract that I just explained. And that's on top of their actual games that they developed themselves. I don't know how Action Hero did. I actually haven't looked, but this is just indicative of the fact that due to lower than expected sales from our 6 game launches, this feels like it's almost across the board. Although they did say that they were happy with the sales of Into the Radius, specifically on PSVR 2. but it just feels like this was a tough year. And this is funny because funny is a bad word. I'm sorry. This is striking because last year around this time, one of the executives of Fast Travel Games posted a message on LinkedIn, and I could not find it. It might have been deleted. But I know for a fact I read it because it's in a YouTube video that I posted last year, where they said, we're very, very happy about a strong fourth quarter in 2023, bolstered by the fact that Vampire The Masquerade Justice has sold very well. It's already sold 100,000 units. So they went from a very strong fourth quarter, one of the best they've had as a company, to now a year later, they put out 6 products. They didn't go well, and now they're having to lay people off and reduce their departments and all that. So it sucks, and it tells you how fast things can change in a year. Meta has a lot to answer for because, and I talked about this last week, that storefront is an impediment to game sales. It is an absolute mess, and multiple developers are openly talking about the fact that the store is hurting them in terms of generating game sales, because the discoverability since the App Lab merger and Meta pretty much pushing Horizon Worlds really hard and Quest Plus, it's very hard to be discovered as a new app on that store. Plus the volume of games that's just being put out there, it's as bad as Steam now. But Steam at least has proper filtering to be able to find something correctly. Meta's filters are leave a lot to be desired, to say the least. So yeah, Meta has a lot to answer for there, and it's really frustrating. That's why I'm stumbling over my words, because I'm actually aggravated just reading this story. It sucks. Fast Travel Games has been in VR for a very, very long time. Let's just look at their game list here. I've played a good chunk of these. Not Action Hero, but run through the list. Into the Radius, skip past all their newer stuff. Let's see, Vampire The Masquerade Justice, Ghost Signal, Stellaris Story, Cities VR, Guardians Frontline, Broken Edge, Everslot Invasion, We Are One, Virtuoso, Rate the Oblivion Afterlife, The Curious Tale of Stolen Pets, Budget Cuts 2, Insolvency, Apex Construct. I mean, they've been in the game for a very, very long time. Part of me feels like this is a bit of a regression to the mean, because again, a lot of teams scaled up when VR saw a lot of explosive growth with the Quest 2, and a lot of teams hired a lot of people, and we're starting to see all these games come to fruition, and they're just not doing well. I still firmly believe that the success formula for VR is small team, big hit. Arcanage was built by 4 people. Dungeons of Eternity was built by 4 people. Legendary Tales was built by 4 people. Into the Radius, when that game first came out, that team I think was 10 people. CM Games is a lot bigger now. It was less than a dozen people when that game first came out 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. And I go on and on and on. Another Axiom who made Gorilla Tag, that was like 3 dudes who made that game. And now they're a lot bigger because they've made over $100 million. But that game started with 3 people. It seems like the success formula is small team, unexpectedly big hit, and then you can scale up from there. Instead of hire 100 developers like XR Games did, for instance, hire 100 developers, get a bunch of IPs like Hitman and Starship Troopers, and you're going to have success because everyone's going to buy these games. Companies like XR Games try that and it doesn't work. And then, you know, XR Games had layoffs last year when Hitman absolutely bombed. Microsoft has also done some real damage to the industry as a whole in their bid to rend the space with Game Pass. I believe that's devalued new games to a great degree. I think there is a massive discount problem in gaming, period. The phrase "I'll wait for a sale," or in Meta's case, "Hey, do you have a referral code?" is like prevalent. And I don't think there's any one culprit there because they're all guilty of it. Meta, Steam, Microsoft, especially with Game Pass, been ridiculous. But yeah, it has skewed the perception of value for a game. I'm gonna review a game here pretty soon that took me 2 hours to finish, and I think for what it is and for the price of it, it is I thought it was priced appropriately, but people are just going to look at the playtime and go, I'm not playing that. I'm not paying for that. Games as a service has a lot to answer for there too. There's a bunch of different contributing factors to how we got here with gaming in general. It's not one thing or just one company. Some are more culpable than others, but it's an industry trend that is, it's gonna come to a head at some point where you can't keep making these games like Spider-Man 2 that had a $300 million budget, sold over 10 million copies. That is over $700 million in revenue, and they still laid off people from Insomniac Games because the game was not profitable enough. There is a point of no return there. There's a breaking point that has to happen.